At this time, we'll have a public hearing on item number 44, summary number 25178. Anyone wishing to speak, please step forward at this time. Please state your name for the record. I'd like to remind everyone that the time limit on this matter is 15 minutes for those that are in favor and 15 minutes for those that are opposed. I will ask the clerk to please allow me to know when each speaker reaches a 2-minute period in order to be fair to those that are in the audience, to give ample time to those that wish to speak.
Al Morello, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, Kenner, 4th District, unincorporated, Jefferson, 47 years. I'm opposed to this ordinance. I firmly believe that it should be rescinded, the permit altogether. And like I said at the last meeting, Cornerstone, do what you got to do, and we're going to do what we got to do to represent the best interests of our people and their public safety. Now, I want to see if I can put this whole thing in a little perspective here, okay? Back in January 2018, I think this permit was voted on. It was voted on unanimously by this council. I believe that some of you up there had put yourself in a position to where you was compelled to approve this permit. And this is my beliefs. Now, as far as threatening of a lawsuit, we can't win, and I mean, that's all we're hearing here, okay? Now you all have put yourself in a position, and the people, for whatever reason, didn't voice their opinion back at the time. Some of them may have even been left out of the loop. Now, all of a sudden, we got an election looming in October, parish-wide, and now the people are making their voices heard that finally found out what's going on here. And I applaud them for doing that, okay? The meeting they had a week ago at the Wegman Auditorium was a complete fiasco. These people from Cornerstone are here today, flat out right told these people they wasn't going to answer some of these questions. It was a total fiasco, a total waste of time. That's why I conduct my business at this podium. Now, I want to say this, all we hearing is lawsuits that we can't win. They don't even have the permit from the LDEQ yet.
15.
What happens if the LDEQ denies them the permits that they need? What happens then? They're going to file a lawsuit against the LDEQ? Now, I want to touch on this as quickly as I can. Years ago, we had a similar situation like this with River Birch Landfill. This council, some of you wasn't up here at the time. We had the same scenario. We had this council that voted unanimously to close our landfill for 25 years and send all of the solid waste to River Birch, which contract totaled $160 million. Then it was found out through people like myself, Mr. Haney and Margie Seaman and Margaret Baird, who is now deceased, that they was misleading this council. They were submitting information that was not correct. And I believe that we have the same scenario with Cornerstone. I think the public is being misled, and I think this council is being misled. And I'm going to tell you why. Expansion means to increase. Webster's New World Dictionary. For them to stand up here at the last meeting and tell these people in this audience and this council that they don't plan on producing any more product, what do they think expansion means? Storage means just that. To store. Put in storage. Means just what it says. They say they're not going to store anything in those storage tanks. $100 million to expand that plant, and they're not going to produce any more product. And that's going to be an emergency situation only with the storage tank? Come on, man. It don't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. So I'm opposed to this ordinance. I want it rescinded. And I'll challenge Cornerstone myself, if none of you all will, to come on and do what you got to do. And we're going to do what we got to do. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Anybody?
Just to clarify so we don't have the language getting confused. You keep saying you're opposed to this ordinance, but the
Yes,
way the
ma'am.
ordinance is written is to rescind it, so you're in support of it.
No, I'm support to rescind it. I'm not in support to amend it. I'll make that perfectly clear right now. What y'all trying to do here today, including the news reports, is amend that permit. I'm against amending it. I want it rescinded. Wiped out.
The rescission is Mr. Dwyer, just because I don't want people to get confused, because I did get questions if there's an amendment, as if there was an amendment from the last agenda. Councilman
It's an
Spears?
amendment to the original permit.
In January.
It would rescind the cyanide plant and storage tanks, and because there was other aspects to their permit that had nothing to do
So,
with it.
Mr. Morelli, your position would be, is
I'm
this
in favor
correct
of
language-wise? Mr. Morelli's position is in support of this amendment, correct?
Correct. It removes the cyanide.
Not opposed, just
Right.
so we don't get confused.
Right. I'm not opposed to any amendments. I'm opposed to rescind it altogether. That's what I'm for. Rescinding it. I'm for rescinding it, Councilwoman Chan. What you all deferred from the last meeting. That's what I'm in favor of. Anybody else got any comments, any questions? And I'm surprised at you, Councilman Roberts, because I read the article in the Advocate, your story, with the Monsanto plant.
Why is that surprising? I made it clear I was in favor of rescinding.
Oh, no, I'm talking about back in January 18. It was a unanimous vote on this council, was it not? To issue that permit?
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I think that there is a lot of information that has been brought forth since that time, along with other things that have aggravated the process since that time, along with the landfill, that have caused many people to look into further as to what the plans are and what it entails.
That's the misleading I'm talking about, Councilman Roberts. Thank you for confirming that for me. Anybody else? Thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is Tony Legge. I'm here as the executive director of the Jefferson Business Council. I was glad to hear Mr. Morella offer to spearhead the defense of the lawsuit that may come if you were to rescind the permit that's been granted, because I hope he will also step up and agree to pay any kind of money judgment that the parish might get popped on if this does wind up in litigation and we lose. It's easy to get up here and talk a lot, but you know, this is you're on a slippery slope, folks. We stand by our position. We came to the last meeting. We asked that matter be deferred on the last agenda. And unfortunately, this council meeting came around in 2 weeks, which was a pretty quick time, and really didn't give a good opportunity for full discussion on it. I'd suggest to you that once you pull the trigger on this, if you do revoke it, there's no going back. Any opportunity to obtain additional concessions from Cornerstone relative to safety, which would benefit the neighborhood, would be lost. That's a shame for the neighborhood. And basically, you're going to wind up, if a court comes in and renders a judgment, look, you've got good legal counsel, okay? If a court comes in and renders a judgment reversing this, you're gonna be in the same position that you're gonna be at, without any kind of leverage whatsoever. So I would just urge caution in what you are doing. Please think this through. Do not pull the trigger on this without fully vetting with Cornerstone what they're willing to do. And you know, the bottom line is a court ruling can change a bad decision, but it really can't change the implications or perceptions of a bad decision by the council. And we're very concerned about that. Councilman Johnson, you talked about Bridge City needing economic development. I think a wrong decision in this type of matter, where you're taking away essentially somebody's property right. The property right of Cornerstone, when that permit was granted, is not a good message to send. And yeah, court may correct that if you all do decide to rescind it, but it's not gonna correct the perception. So I appreciate your listening to me, and just ask that you really think this thing through. Thank you.
Mr. Legge, let me just add to that. One, property rights are one thing, and I want to say that if there was some way to ensure that whatever is occurring on that property was contained to that property, that might very well be valid. However, there is no way to guarantee that what is being done on that site can be contained to that site. I think what's a little disturbing for me is that when we asked the gentleman as to why they were looking to expand upon why they were building at a larger size than what was before, and basically the argument was, well, we're building it, we're not going to use it. And then I understand during the public hearing that was held, they wouldn't give any commitments to anyone as to whether or not that would be used or not used. So the mixed messages that are coming from Cornerstone is why we're somewhat in the predicament that we're in today. My other suggestion to them is that during the time that SciTech operated that facility, SciTech was very proactive in engaging the community. I'm sure you're aware that there was a representative that SciTech had that would attend chamber meetings, that was engaged in the business community, that would involve the fire department in the area. They actually held a fire awards banquet every year and co-opted with the fire departments, and what the response would be on site in the event that they were called upon to be able to have to do something at the facility. It looks as though to me that, and admittedly by the gentleman who was present answering questions at the last meeting, that they cut that position out, okay? So therefore, the message that is out there now is one that I don't know what is accurate and is not accurate, and you know, it's unwound into this web of a whole bunch of different things being said, nobody giving any formal commitment to anything, and I think that that's what's led to the certain sense of distrust that may exist. So with that said, I can't sit here and say all of this is falling on the council, because I didn't make the decision to get rid of the gentleman that handles community relations for them, and nor did I get rid of the gentleman that interacted with the fire department. So therefore, they allowed a message about their operations to be formed on its own. And that obviously may have been a bottom line decision that they made to get rid of that position. And it doesn't help that within the industry right now, okay, and I understand that it's not Cornerstone facilities, but we don't need to look much further than Texas to see that over the course of the last 2 months that there have been a number of issues at chemical plants, one of them occurring yesterday. So that's where I think we are, and had the proper message gotten out from the very beginning, and had the public been educated from the start on what the plans were and what was going on at that site, then I think that there would be a lot less distrust that exists within the community right now.
And if I may, I think all of the issues that you're bringing up are resolvable issues. I really do. You know, the issue of problems with chemical plants, there are a lot of chemical plants on the face of this earth, and to say that two recent incidents, this plant has been there for how long? Over 60 years, I think, since the 50s. And, you know, we can take any one incident and apply it, but is that fair? Is that fair?
Well, I think it would be fair if you look at recent releases as it relates to the number of incidences involving cancer within our region and the correlations in the number of plants that exist, okay? And as I have personally watched the Monsanto trials unfold and hear sworn testimony by individuals who worked for the government and who also stated that information was not presented properly and covered up, and other things that were misdeeds, and understand that was Monsanto, this is not Cornerstone. It leads me to have a general or a certain sense of disbelief within the industry as to whether or not we are getting accurate and truthful information. And having served in the legislature, I'm sure you're very familiar with the fact that DEQ in Louisiana has very limited resources, okay? And we could do a lot better job of monitoring and keeping these facilities in check if the state were to put the money forward to do that, because we're paying for it when it comes to medical care, when you have citizens that are ending up having to fight terminal illnesses in return for having a DEQ that's properly funded, that would, you know, make sure that these releases are checked and other things are addressed. And I'll leave my comments at that.
Look, I understand that you're very passionate about the issue and you're dug in. You've stated where you're going to be at. But I would just ask you that at the very least, give this more time to work through. 2 weeks was not a sufficient amount of time. My understanding is that at the meetings that were held, some council people attended, others did not. So I think this needs more vetting, please.
Well, and part of that has to do with open meetings laws as well, so let's be clear.
I understand, sure.
Hi, my name is Ileana Leday. I'm Vice President of Policy at GNO Inc. I appreciate your thoughtful comments and well-researched comments, and I'm also grateful for the opportunity to be here today. I think the issue that we have from GNO Inc.'s perspective is that this is a company that went through the proper process. It filled out all the paperwork, it appeared before the council, it received approval, it made an investment in the parish, started on its approved project, and then was told, never mind, we might be changing our minds. And that's the issue that we have from GNO Inc.'s perspective. We have businesses come in and they ask us what the business climate is like here in Southeast Louisiana, and we provide them a comprehensive picture, an honest picture of what it's like to do business here. The example here today is not one that we want to be sharing with companies considering relocating here or expanding. So I'm here in opposition in support of Cornerstone, and I thank you for listening and considering our comments today.
Let me ask this question. Yes. Out of we did have a public meeting that occurred last Wednesday. Out of 7 council members, you had 5 there, and the 2 that did not attend had prior places to be. Mm-hmm. But what are we supposed to tell our citizens? We're supposed to ignore the probably around 100 people that were there last Wednesday? Are we supposed to ignore over the 2,000 comments that were made saying that, made to the DEQ on DEQ website, saying that they do not want this to occur? What are we supposed to tell the citizens that we serve?
Yeah, not at all. I think more time, to Tony's point, I think some more time could serve. 2 weeks is a tight window, and if some of the council members couldn't make it, this is a big decision for everyone involved.
I agree, but were you at the event last Wednesday? Or did the GC send, not GC, what? GNO Inc. Did you all send someone to the event? So you can hear the citizens' concern? Do you live in that neighborhood?
I don't live in that neighborhood, but I did grow up in Jefferson Parish.
But do you live in Waggaman?
No.
Well, that's the people that's concerned.
Yeah.
And I represent those people, so I can't sit back and just do nothing.
Yeah, and we're not asking you to, we're just asking you to spend some more time considering this and looking into it. Thank you.
Let me add too, and you know, Councilman Spears' comments. To my recollection, and Councilman Spears, correct me if I'm wrong, there have been releases at that site recently.
There you go.
Is that correct? Okay, so it's not as if the the risk associated, you know. And I also want to say this too, because, and you know, I grew up with a father that worked in industry, and obviously we had a roof put over our head, and I went through school with industry. And the argument made that, well, what is the message we're sending? Part of the fact is that these plants have nowhere else to go, okay? They're coming here because of the river. I mean, they can't go to Wichita, Kansas and decide to build the plant in Wichita, Kansas. But it's come time where I think, not just with Cornerstone, but with every one of these plants that line the river, and the operation that's occurring out in Harahan right now, and River Ridge with midstream loading and marine, that all of them need to be held accountable to some standard. And that's not apparently being done. And as a result of it, our residents are suffering because of it, okay? So I don't buy the fact that, okay, we're sending a bad message. Well, hell, what do I tell the family who lives within the area that, what's the argument about mesothelioma and all of the cases as it relates to that occurred in this area because of dealing with asbestos? I wish the council at the time would have ran the damn asbestos plant off. We wouldn't have the problem we have with residents now coming up with these illnesses. So that's my point. And I think the state needs to get off their tail and start doing a lot better job of monitoring all of these chemical plants. And I'm speaking of this because of my own personal experiences too. I don't buy this crap that these companies it's going to send a bad message. Dealing with chemical plants and dealing with other things related to industry is totally different. And you tell me who would openly come and welcome a cyanide plant in their backyard. And I understand that there's one already there. The problem I have with it is no one will give us a commitment that they're not looking to expand the operations that they're already doing. Mr. Murphy.
Bingo. Good morning, Council. Todd Murphy with the Jefferson Chamber of Commerce. All total, we have about 50,000 people that are part of our chamber through the 800 companies that are members. So Chris, I think you had a good point. It's not about, no offense, 100 people that attend an open hearing. It's about the 435,000 residents of Jefferson Parish. We're going through the legislative process, right, to hopefully avoid the judicial process. That's not a threat. I have no idea what Cornerstone would do. But we've seen this over and over, have we not? So as long as we're going through the legislative process, the permit has already been granted. This is not a conversation about whether or not we have a chemical plant in our parish. And by the way, I think Lake Charles would love to have them. If you go there, the place is booming because of the chemical industry. But the permit's been issued.
Anderson know that because
neither here nor there. It's a viable industry, and it is a big part of Louisiana, as oil and gas is. But my point is, if this is really about community safety, and this is really about environmental safety, and Chris, you said, I don't know what's true and I don't know what's not true. If it's really about safety, if you rescind this permit, these people that are behind me to speak on the other side of this, all the concessions, all the compromises that this firm is willing to make. I've heard about fence line monitoring and all sorts of things. If it goes to the next process, the judicial process, and I think I counted 5 attorneys sitting on the other side of the rail, we know what's going to happen. They'll make the order. They'll probably make it very quick, and this company can do whatever they want. It's no different than some kind of corner store that wants to go up, and if you don't work the compromise out and it's zoned for that, they're going to win. You're going to get the corner store. You just might not get the pretty bushes around the dumpster. We're missing an opportunity. This is about the residents of Jefferson. Sure, we're working hard at the chamber and with civic organizations and the business council and you guys and the school board to get people to move here. We've got a great opportunity with our schools right now. So yes, it sends the wrong message, but at the same time, if it's about giving safety to our residents, let's take the opportunity to work with that guy back there to work out whatever compromises that makes everybody happy. This is the last chance to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Let me ask you this, Todd. What if DEQ listens to the over 2,000 and some letters that were sent to them, and DEQ denies this permit? Do they still have a lawsuit? It's still in the process. Whatever cost that they incurred, they had to submit the plans to the parish. They still had to submit the plans to the state. They have not started any construction because they can't, because they don't have all the permits. They still got to get the state permit. So all this talk about a lawsuit and being scared about a lawsuit is still in the process. The process is not finished. The state still has to approve the permit. So I don't understand why we keep talking about this lawsuit, which they don't even have. I don't even see where they have standing to go to court, because the process is still not over. The state still may deny the permit.
Mark, the permit's already been granted.
Not by the state?
But by the parish. And
But
you
not by
guys
the
are talking
state.
today about rescinding the permit.
What
I'm talking about is integrity, okay?
What if
When you issue something, you don't revoke it. If there's a problem with some residents, we work it out.
It's not some residents. I wish you were there last Wednesday to see it was all the residents that were there that day.
Do you remember our conversation?
Yes.
Okay, let's leave it at that.
Councilman,
Councilwoman Beck.
add if I may, because I had a recent experience with a condominium development in my district, and it's given me some thoughts about this process as well. I do not think this is the end of the discussion if we choose to rescind the portion of the permit today that approves the new plant and the storage tanks. In the issue with the condominium, there was a lawsuit filed. There was court action taken when I was pulling back a permit, because we had gotten some information that they hadn't come through the process in a completely transparent way. And part of our integrity is also protecting the process. I know I've had, well, yes and no, because I've also had information sent to me over the past few days questioning whether everything was laid on the table transparently in the application process, whether there were compliance issues and other things outstanding when they were coming through. And if that wasn't completely transparent, that is something for us to question.
Well, that's the first time that's come
Let
up.
me continue. If we today choose to revoke the portion of the permit that is about the new plant and the storage tanks, I will commit that that is not where the discussion ends. In fact, it is perhaps a way for us as a community to say, because we have been in those meetings together and we have conversations with Cornerstone ongoing, to say, clearly there are concerns about the new plant. What are the emissions? What is the capacity? The storage tanks, we've had lots of conversations, and in those multiple conversations, sometimes the offer to reduce those storage tanks, which now are being called vessels, and I understand why, and I appreciate the conversation. Are they gonna hold 12,000 instead of 26,000, or 11,000, or 8,000? We've heard all of those figures. So let me just make clear that if we take this action today, that is not the end of the discussion. It is not the turning point. And if Cornerstone is a good neighbor in this community, they will continue the discussion, because what they need to do at this moment, I think, is clarify what can they do in terms of reducing the plant. What can they do to clarify what are the emissions? What can they do to clarify what's necessary and what's not? They have not been able to do that in a succinct way. I think we have had good conversations, but I think it might be the best course of action for Cornerstone to step back and say, we have heard the community, and I think they have, and they know the elements of concern being expressed. This is actually an opportunity for Cornerstone to come forward and say, let us revise our ask. Let us clarify exactly what we really need, and then let them have those conversations with the community. As Councilman Roberts pointed out, they have not been having, and as they've acknowledged, they have not been having. They have not had good open dialogue with us or with the community. This is a moment for Cornerstone to step forward, clarify what they're asking and what they're not, because it has been changing, and then come back through the process with robust conversation, with transparency to all of the people in this process. That, to me, could be a win-win moving forward. So I don't want there to be gloom and doom about whatever action taken today is the end of the road. It's not. And they have been a part of our community, and they will continue to be. So this is a way for them to step up as neighbors and have those ongoing conversations and reassure people about what they're gonna do. And I do appreciate the conversations that have been going on thus far with Cornerstone and with the residents, and we have been at those meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Heaney, I'm a resident of Metairie. Sky's falling, guys. I mean, you better watch out. I mean, no doubt, they're gonna carry through with their threats. You know, the problem I got with this is, look, I no offense to this man Rankin, but I don't think that you can compare a condo structure to this. And what they're trying to tell you is you're stopping them from using the land that they want. Well, the last time I checked, this council's responsibility by law is for the health, the safety, and the welfare of the people of Jefferson Parish. Right. Not one company, right, but the 400 and so that they're talking about. You know, this is the most ridiculous thing I just heard. Trying to come up with something that's threatening you on. You know, it should go to court. All right? You know, it shakes me up because they keep going back to 1953. Well, you know, in 1953, you didn't have people flying planes into tall buildings, okay? Back in 53, you didn't have these remote controlled, you know, planes and I guess whatever you call them. You don't have, you know, you didn't have those back then. What you got today, right now, is a plant that's manufacturing a poison in liquid form. It's condensed, okay? And it was built so long ago, and I agree, they want to modify the plant. I think it should be shut down, okay? To be honest with you, I worked in it. I can tell you right now, it's the nastiest plant I ever worked in. I'd never go back there. But people need to understand that this is about the community at whole. And the community at whole is suffering like Mr. Roberts got, he's got cancer. I had colon rectal cancer. We live in an area where cancer is rampant, okay? For these plants to be here. And not to say that this plant is operating and not contributing to that, it's just, I can't believe anybody that would stand up here with a straight face that would do that. You know, it is what it is. It's a poison. It's a highly dangerous poison, and they've made no safety changes much since '53. You can drive through the plant's front door. There's nothing stopping you. They don't have the pop-up curbs to stop a truck. Okay, they don't have the force, the type of security force that they should have. They don't have horns to blow so when there is a leak that people would know it. They've made no whatsoever contacting the Coast Guard to make some type of plan because the Coast Guard monitors the traffic on the river. They should be notified in case there's any type of leak, especially right now with our river. It's that dangerous not to do that, but they don't do it. They don't have a dedicated fire department. They don't have dedicated equipment to put out a fire. And you're going to ask these guys, if you allow the permanent and allow this plant to go forward, what you've done is that you've made so that our fire department, our people, have to go in and fight a fire that they probably shouldn't even be there to begin with, because they don't have. You can have hazmat training, but this is totally something different. You know, you're talking about a liquefied, and it's highly potent. You know, it bubbles off at room temperature at 78 degrees, and it starts giving off vapors. So I just don't see the wisdom in this at all. I got one question. Can anybody, one of the council members, tell me who signed off originally? What's on this permit that they received? Who approved that? Nobody wants to. Okay. Well, there's one other
I can answer that. The council approved it, but it was on the recommendation of the parish attorney's office, hazmat, code enforcement, fire department. It's a public works, sewage, drainage. All those entities had no opposition to the permit.
Had no opposition.
Yes.
How'd that happen? I
I don't know. I mean, ask them.
My next question, has there been an inspection of the plant? Because how are they getting rid of the poisonous chemicals they don't use? Are they using that, are they injecting that into the ground? Are they sending that to our plant? Is that the reason why we're having problems with the dump? I mean, you could shut that plant down by doing an inspection. You're responsible for the health, safety, welfare, and that mandate gets you out there at that plant to do an inspection. I think before they get another foot in the door with another permit, I think you need to send over some professionals to do exactly that. To take a look at the plant and look at its operation and see where they're sending this chemical waste. Because I make a bet, I got a feeling they're probably injecting it into the ground. If not, what landfill is accepting it? None of these questions have been addressed. None of them. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Lisa Carlin. I'm here representing a lot of people who really wanted to be here today, but they're at work. And they are saving lives, they are teaching our children, and they are keeping Jefferson Parish open for business while we are here today. You know, the people who live and work in Jefferson Parish are the backbone of Jefferson Parish and really generate taxes that drive our economy. So the business community recognizes that this is a very unique situation. We have a number of people in our 2,800 member organization who either work directly with or personally know CEOs of a lot of major businesses and hospitals, and the Cyanide plant was news to them. Now, we were told over and over that while they're all for economic development, a cyanide plant was pushing it just a little too far. And we had a number of people who said, wow, a cyanide plant so close to the airport and residential areas, that could actually prevent businesses from coming to Mount Jefferson Parish. You know, rescinding this particular permit doesn't mean that you're gonna just start revoking permits right and left. The process to rescind an ordinance is clearly defined in the parish charter, and there is a precedent. Most importantly, public safety and economic development are not mutually exclusive. You can have both, you should have both, and the business community knows this. You've heard from the public. We don't know the number of calls and emails that you've received directly, but you've received over 500 emails in the last 3 days. And that was through a link that we provided to the community. And I hope you've read the public's comments, because just 4 of those emails were in favor of having a cyanide plant and storage tanks out at Cornerstone. So some recurring comments that we saw in these emails that went to you were, do your job, no increased pollutants, and then think about what just happened in Houston again, and save the children. And there was a suggestion to build a cyanide plant up in Atlanta next to the Falcons training facility. And I bring you 64 comment cards from last week's public meeting that was held at the Wagaman Playground. 2 of the cards say, let Cornerstone keep the permit. 62 say, take back the permit. And a number of these cards have 2 or more names on them. And you know, these are the people who went to the public meeting, they listened to what Cornerstone had to say, and still they opposed the cyanide plant and storage tanks. So the people of Jefferson Parish have spoken, and I hope that you all are listening. Thank you. Mr. Brooks,
Let me say something. Lisa, I just want to actually thank you. You've been working hard, sending emails, doing research, and thanks for all the work you've been doing. I know I've shared a sentiment with my colleagues up here. You've done a lot of research, a lot of work on this. You know, I know you don't have enough time to share it all with us this morning, but thank you for all the work you've done.
We appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Samantha Carlin. This is my first time speaking at one of these meetings, so I just wanted to write something short. I'm a doctor completing my residency here. Something we're reminded of every day for patient care is that there are things we know we don't know, but there are also things that we don't know we don't know. And this gap in knowledge, those things that we don't know is the trickiest, and it's really the most dangerous form. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not only going to miss it, but you won't even realize that you did. And by the time you realize it, you'll be looking back and it's going to be far too late. So for the cyanide plant and its overall safety, I encourage everyone here, especially the council, to search within and realize that there may be gaps in your knowledge that you don't know you don't know. So listen to your community, listen to those with expertise in areas where yours falls short. A cyanide plant is a bad idea. It's not safe to have a cyanide plant so close to our community. Cornerstone has not been forthcoming with this information. Cornerstone has repeatedly changed its information, downplayed its impacts on the community, and left us repeatedly with more questions than answers. Because of this, there's too much that we collectively know we don't know, but there's so much more that we don't know we don't know. And that should really scare everyone here. Councilmen and women, if you want to truly represent your community, the same community that are like to you to that spot you're sitting in right now, then say no to the cyanide plant and rescind the permit and leave this place better than it was when you found it.
Absolutely. Good job, young lady. Thank you. Good job.
Brian Miller, resident of Kenner, fireman from Wagon. I listen to the three business organizations come up here and talk and tell y'all what to do. So my question is kind of to them. The state requires a reportable amount of chemicals before that industry has to call it in and report it. So what is a level of comfort that you have to put in your house that chemical that these people are producing? I had the privilege of sitting in a meeting recently with some of our fire service leaders, and that exact question was asked. And there is a emergency manager who at one time worked for the state, and that was his answer. Oh, it has to be a reportable amount. Well, what amount is it? Do you want a glass of cyanide in your house? Do you want a glass of whatever ethyl methyl making dead chemical at your house? So I asked that of the three business communities that come up here. What level are you comfortable with? Because I know as a fireman, and I told y'all last month, I'll say it again, I'm not a fire chief, but I've had the opportunity to wear a policeman's uniform and now a fire uniform. And there's nothing that this company or the state has done to make me comfortable to respond to those calls. I gave an example 2 months ago. They had an incident where one of their employees went down. Pull up Tiburon. Y'all are all councilmen. Go to any fire station on the West Bank. They all have Tiburon and Firehouse. Pull it up. We were dispatched to a non-exposure medical call along with West Jefferson Ambulance. And when they got there, they were told the gentleman was actually exposed to sulfuric acid. Now maybe sulfuric acid on this one isn't the chemical that can really hurt you. Maybe it is. But what's it going to take for them to be honest with us? I've heard everybody come up here and talk about Houston. Houston can very well be Wagaman tomorrow. And I don't speak just as a resident. I speak as a first responder. My job is to protect you and to protect you. And I'm not getting the information to do that. I think the problem that we have here is the education of the public from those that are educated in this industry, and the lack of communication from our emergency management supervisors and leaders. Again, I ask, where are they? I know that there's little closed door meetings among some council members or parish administrators with certain fire chiefs. The people need to know. Why are we scared to disseminate the information to the people? That's the job I took, to serve the people along with y'all. My recommendation, and I agree, maybe it takes more time. Give this gentleman, I think Mr. Ura is very intelligent. Look at the way he responded to the questions from Mr. Spears last week. He's either an attorney or he's done a whole lot of talking in court because he knew not to say what he didn't want to say.
That's right.
So I think he's intelligent. Maybe we just need more time, Mr. Spears. Maybe we just need, so my recommendation is to rescind it at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, man. Good job.
My name is David Williams. I'm speaking in support of this resolution because I don't think we need this cyanide plant in Wagaman. I feel for the people of Wagaman and River Ridge if y'all do approve it. I don't want to see this happen. Not approve it, but if you do let it go through. But I don't see the cyanide plant go through. I'm not a very good public speaker, as you can tell. But I want to tell you that some of the terms y'all are using up here, and the gentleman before me mentioned that this permit is an issue. That is not a permit. That is a special permitted use. That's not a permit. Code enforcement issues permits, not the planning department. That's the zoning use. Say, yes, that can go there in the zoning district. What does code enforcement look at? Parking. How many employees on site? What the parking's going to be. They look at setbacks. They look at the area of the property ratio to the structure. That's all they're looking at. The planning department looks at it. They send out letters to all the properties within so many feet. The distance for a rural area like Wagman is not sufficient because the letters don't get out to the people surrounding the property. There's vacant property all around it. Except on the Lave roadside, I think they may have a few houses. But them people probably don't care about coming to the hearings or saying anything about it. There's only 1 or 2 houses, maybe 3 houses out that way. We have so many problems out in that area with landfill already. My wife's watching the cameras all the time. Our video cameras, it's like snow falling almost every night. You know what it is in the air. And it really gets her scared. I don't know, it's just a lot of bad information. When I went to the meeting last week, that was a joke. They controlled the whole meeting. They had to write our questions down beforehand, and they were going to read the questions. I put up a 3-part question, and they didn't answer my second. They didn't even read the second I had. They ignored it totally. The first one, they made about some kind of fluff reply to it. Third one, I've written down here my questions. Go ahead, I'll get it right. Third question was I asked them, if the construction is started, why, since you don't have any permits for the property, all your required permits, they didn't have the DEQ approval. They didn't, as a matter of fact, y'all are required that before they even do the special permitted use. That should be required before that, especially for chemical plants. That process is not detailed enough for chemical plants, in my opinion. I worked for y'all for 33 years. Those of you who know me, okay? I don't know anything about chemicals, but I know that the processes need to be fixed. We need strong leadership. If I was sitting in your seats, I'd vote against it. I mean, I'd vote for the resolution that you have on the table right now. I'd vote for it if I was in your seat now. Okay? That's all I got to say.
Good job, man. Good job, my friend.
Thank you.
My name is Leo McBride. I live at 10128 Reynolds Drive in Wagaman. And I'm not in favor of Cornerstone's expansion of building a new plant. Personally, I think the 1953 expansion was a mistake. Also, I heard Mr. Spears say about all the people in the parish who approved, the committee to go forward, about storage tanks and all that. But it was all Mr. Yanni's people, the sewage department, DEQ, fire department, and all the rest of this group. But they're all Mr. Yanni's yes men. Remember the last time someone said no to the parish president? Tim Coulon. What did he do? He fired them all because they said no. So, I mean, that's just one man made the decision. All the other ones fell in behind him. They didn't want to say no to him because they want their jobs. We live up there. That's what, my wife right now, she misses work quite a bit because of her asthma. And I don't see any improvement that they offered us, that's going to help us. It's the downside. And we weren't told. We just learned it a couple of weeks ago after the first of this year that what they were planning on doing. We didn't know nothing about it. I mean, you people knew about it a whole year, but we didn't know anything about it. And it's being forced upon us. We didn't ask for it. They never came to us. And when they came to us meeting, he brought he had 20 Jefferson Parish bodyguards. I asked the guy, I said, why is the guy, the police officer, I said, why isn't he, 20 bodyguards? He just laughed. He says, that was funny that he was all there protecting him from us. We couldn't even go near him after the meeting. There was a big square of Jefferson Parish police officers guarding him so nobody could anybody could come near him. I mean, that's how you talk to a community about a project that you want to build behind armed guards. Thank you.
My name is Anthony Blois and I live in Bridge City. I just want to say for the record that I have no financial gain in any of this. I'm not looking for a job with Cornerstone, but we need to put a more clear vision on how things get done. I gave, at the Wednesday meeting, I gave Mr. Spears, which he probably didn't read, the standard how you operate a chemical plant. That's this page. You didn't read it, did you? Well, why didn't you tell them that there's a standard? Why are you keeping it a secret? Tell me, why are you keeping it a secret? There is a standard how you operate a chemical plant. You need a chemical engineer. None of yous are. I'm not a chemical engineer. I wouldn't even think about trying to diagnose what's going on at that plant. The worst part about that meeting is that there's blame on all sides. Not only on their side in that they don't know about this document, but you don't know about the document. So how can you make a judgment on whether that plant is operating to the peak efficiency, the so-called gold standard? Now, just as an aside, how difficult this topic is. I needed surgery last year. Now, you would think every doctor operates to the gold standard. Well, I couldn't get the gold standard for that surgery in Jefferson Parish. I had to go to Baton Rouge. No surgeon would do the gold standard here, operates along that. And if you need bypass surgery, you would think there's a gold standard for that. You would think every surgeon operates towards the gold standard if they're going to do bypass surgery. Very few do. So you've got to look at the literature. It's important. That's what this American Institute of Chemical Engineers does. That's the reason to exist. They're sort of like a guild of the 18th century. They tell you how to make these chemicals so that they're safe for the public. Now the problem that we have is you got a lot of people that are not chemical engineers, do not know anything about the chemical engineering, making all kinds of statements about illnesses and planes flying into the thing. The biggest problem with those plants is they lose power for whatever reason, and they have a release. Now I can't tell you by looking at his schematic whether he's going to have a release. You need a chemical engineer. Now if you're saying that the state doesn't have a chemical engineer to evaluate these issues, the problem is with the state. And certainly they have a problem and they don't know about the gold standard. And Mr. Urer is a chemical engineer, he's not a lawyer. So there's problems all around. Now, the player in this operation that nobody seems to mention is Little John. Little John owns that company, it's a holding company. The only reason for existence is to turn around these small chemical companies and make them public. And they don't have a stellar reputation. And you can get this online, all their violations. And Cornerstone has its share of violations, I have to admit. I mean, they're not the best. But if you want to see what happens if Little John pulls the plug on this and say that there's no way we're going to get this plant public, because they're not interested in limping along. They got to make this plant pay and show a profit and not be saddled with all sorts of issues that we're hearing right now. If they go out of business, visit me in Bridge City. I'll show you what happens when plants fail. I'll take you to Westwego. I'll take you to Bridge City in the Avondale shipyard. And if you think that this is not a problem, you're going to have the same empty space. No one's going to want that facility.
30 seconds, sir.
No, what we need is 30 seconds to get rid of the public should be here in force, telling you that 30 seconds to clean out your desk. No, it's not funny. It's not funny at all. I behoove you to get a chemical engineer to give you the advice you need and to make the public feel, especially the people in Wagaman, that that plant is doing all it can to meet this criteria that the American Institute of Chemical Engineers has put forward. And that's the best they can do. And as far as all these other issues that people are bringing up about the plant,
time's up.
they're ridiculous. They're meaningless. What we need is that plant to be profitable, and I don't care how much cyanide they make, as long as they make it with the public in mind. And if you think another company's going to take over this,
Sir, your time is up.
look at this issue. If you think another CEO is going to decide to move to Jefferson Parish, they take a look at this, they won't give you a second look.
Hi, my name is Karen Abear. I live at 33 Imogene in Wagaman. Ground Zero, as Mr. Yenny called it, for the cyanide plant. We don't need cyanide in our area. This has been the most stressful time of my life trying to fight this. People in Wagaman don't know about the cyanide plant a year ago because our civic leaders are on the board of advisory for Cornerstone. And evidently they didn't think it was important for us to know. When I found out about it, I actually, along with some of the Harahan people, walked our neighborhood giving out flyers, doing Facebook notifications, everything I could to notify them that we were getting a cyanide plant, and these people did not know. None of these people in Wagaman knew, especially the new people on Revette that did not even know when they bought their home there was a cyanide plant right behind them. So I ask y'all, please, don't allow this to happen. These people don't live in our area. They don't know the fear we have. They don't know the health issues that we have. And they can sleep at night, we can't. So I ask y'all, please, don't let it go through. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you for all the work you've done and informing the people and all that stuff. It definitely has not been unnoticed. Thanks, Karen.
I thank you and Mr. Roberts for being forthcoming with us and being honest. We really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Albert Luquette. I live in Wagner, 40 Bluebell. I've been living there about 48 years. I worked at that chemical plant for 30 years. I worked in different plants all over up and down the river. And every one of them wants safety. They don't want nobody hurt, nobody killed. Now y'all think you're gonna cancel out this cyanide plant, it's gonna go away? It is not. Cyanide is a byproduct when they make acrylic. Acrylic goes in everything. All plastics. Your automobile, the cell phone you carry. You like those cell phones, you like all these equipment. That's not gonna go away. Now everybody talks about, oh, they need monitors, they need this, they need that. They're there. Everywhere there's cyanide in that plant, they have monitors. They're checked once a week. The individual monitor is pulled every so often and verified and replaced and done what has to be done to it. They maintain that plant. Everyone thinks that, oh, they're not going to do nothing. They're just going to throw it out in the air. They're going to kill everybody. People, that's not going to happen. Thank you. Yeah, I know you don't like me.
Sir, if you just state your name.
That's your word, not mine.
Sure, good morning. I'm Tom Nero, Chief Operating Officer for Cornerstone Chemical. So, thank you again for the time to be able to respond and certainly for the comments this morning. A couple things, as mentioned, I am a chemical engineer. I'm not a lawyer, nor do I spend a lot of time in the court system. So I appreciate the opportunity again to speak in coordination with the council. Cornerstone has met with hundreds of Jefferson Parish citizens over the last few weeks regarding our special permitted use permit granted by the council in January of 2018. We've held meetings large and small, responded to questions via phone, email, in person, and engaged in conversation with our near neighbors, community members, and elected officials. We've responded and listened, and with the aim of clearing up possible misconceptions, misinformation about the upgrades to our facility already authorized by the council. From our meetings and listening sessions, we heard, and that's what I commented on last time, 3 things again to make sure that we address. Number 1 and first and foremost is safety. The technology to build the HCN plant is the most recent industry-leading state-of-the-art technology. So when you hear about the gold standard, right, what you want to do is you want to do a number of things. You want to use the best available technology. You want to go above and beyond the minimum requirements. You want to turn standard vessels into process vessels. You want to bring in the state-of-the-art shutdown system. You want to look at duplication of safety, whether it's from power, whether it's from other issues that could cause problems. You want to make it the absolute best, so at the end of the day, you never question, could I have done more? That's the type of engineering that winds up going into this plant. The safety reviews are not only done by us, they're done by others, experts in the field doing process hazard analysis. We spend months and months and months figuring out what could go wrong and how could we mitigate it and go and do it better. You've heard numerous pieces of information over and over again. We do have fire equipment on our site. We talked about that at our community meeting that we have. We've got over 40 full trained emergency response people who can respond to any type of incident we have on our plant site. We take them through training, whether it's LSU Fire School, Delgado. We do spend a lot of time to ensure that we can respond to any issues that we want created. Certainly to go ahead and protect our employees, the community environment, the facility has been designed to those standards. Bottom line is the safety of our employees, our neighbors, community environment has and will continue to be our top priority. We all see what it is on TV, right? The last thing in the world I would ever want to do is have to stand in a hospital room, stand in front of you, stand in front of an entire crowd explaining why I have a plant on fire, why somebody's not coming home. For me personally, that's my worst nightmare. And I work diligently along with 500 employees every day to make sure that that doesn't happen. Are we perfect? No. Have we made mistakes? Yes. But I can swear to you that we make every diligent effort to learn from those mistakes and get better. Storage. The storage issue keeps coming up over and over again. If there was some way I could magically just make those go away, believe me, I would. It would be the easiest thing for us to do to help put this aside. Again, we've tried to help explain. The process vessels that we have are needed there for startup and shutdown and for the safe operation of the plant. If it was there just as a nice way to hold HCN, right, it would have been gone a long time ago and never put in. There's no reason for it. Again, we want to minimize the potential impact to ourselves, our employees, and the community because we work there every single day. From a production standpoint, and Councilman Roberts, this is where you asked pointedly the question to me last time. You stated, will you produce any more HCN than you're doing? And sir, I said no, we're not. You said, are you willing to go on record to state that? Yes, sir, I said I did, and I stand by that today. The purpose of this plant is for replacement. It's replacement capacity as we modify our acrylonitrile plant and produce more acrylonitrile, right? The HCN is makeup capacity only. The council unanimously approved our special permitted use in 2018. We've continued to go through all of our processes, diligently working on that. We've worked tirelessly since that time to fulfill subsequent information and outreach requests from the council. We have heard other things, right? Please, we want you to expand, and you've heard that, right? And we've learned a lot through this process, right? You have to, Tom, you have to extend your outreach beyond your typical community advisory panel that you have. We've heard that, and that's what we're gonna do. We've had great small meetings, right? Great small meetings, where although we may have a different opinion, It was really nice to be able to sit down, look at people across the eyes, and have good conversations, right? We know the meeting, right, at the Wagaman Playground Gym. That's not an ideal environment to have a dialogue. So with, we worked, right? I mean, Mark and I worked to put that on pretty quick, and we did the best we can, right? The statement of 20 armed guards keeping me or us protected is simply a false statement. There were a number of security people there. We obviously have public officials. We have a big gathering. I stayed there well after 9 o'clock and was the last one there. Anybody that wanted to come and talk to me, I stayed there until the very, very end. Those outreach efforts have started, and we're expanding it, and my commitment to you today is to continue to do that. So for us, we have the opportunity this moment in time to work together as citizens, business community, and elected officials. You can choose here today to take the last weeks of discussions between citizens, business community, and elected officials and turn this into collectively positive steps for all of us for a more cooperative future. We can all leave here today knowing that all the hard work and tremendous energy spent by everybody, the community members, who I agree have spent a lot of time looking and understanding this. You all as elected officials listening to the conversations and trying to understand the complexity of what we're doing. Ourselves, dedicating ourselves almost full time to this effort, that this energy is not spent in vain, but rather breaking deeper commitment from all of us to move forward and not look back. So with that, I please ask to not move forward with this. Let us continue to work forward, and that's my commitment.
Yes, Councilman Epistel.
Mr. Ura, I met with the Jefferson Parish coordinator of hazmat, who signed off on the original approval before the council, before we approved it a year ago. And the statement to me was that with the upgrades that were proposed in the permit that were then approved, that would render this facility safer to the community and provide greater protection from releases and adverse effects than the facility currently is today. Would you agree with that? Is that an accurate assessment of the condition this facility would be in?
Sure, that is an accurate assessment. Any time that we can invest over $120 million, $120 million plus, into modernizing, improving everything from our controls to backup. It was mentioned, you know, what happens when you lose power, right? Generators, diking walls, emergency flares. Anytime we can put that amount of money into a facility and upgrade it, absolutely, sir. We make the entire facility safer.
And I was at the Wagaman meeting, and there was a question, well, there was a lot of questioning about the increase in production of HCN. And is my mic on? Okay. And whether or not Cornerstone would agree not to produce, not to increase the production of HCN if these upgrades were permitted. Do you remember all that?
Yes, yes, sir.
Was your response that if it were to increase, you would have to come back to the council for permission to increase that production?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is that what would have to happen?
Yes, sir. So the reason I cannot produce more than I do today, right, even if I wanted to, is two specific issues. There is one on-site tenant that actually consumes the HCN. We don't do anything else with it except give it to that one on-site tenant. So even if I could produce more, there's nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but let's just say hypothetically.
Sure, but hypothetically somebody wanted more. Then what you'd have to do is go through this special permitted use process, because to do more, you would have to change the footprint of the site. You would have to add that process equipment, which means you would have to go start with that entire permitted use process. Clearly, for everybody involved, if that notion was even thought of again, right, we would have to, or whoever would have to start years in advance of discussing it. But that can't get past a council.
And the council would still have to control whether or not
yes, sir,
be producing anything.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Ura. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Let me ask if I can, Councilman, because Tom, you have communicated with us of late extensively and with our residents.
Sure.
Would you admit, and I think you've done this in those meetings, would you admit there's been a lack of communication, of good, robust communication with us and with the community in the past?
Of course. I mean, you typically don't get to a situation of misunderstanding or misinformation. In other words, even just the fundamentals. Do you have a fire engine, right? Do you have people? If there was broad-based communication, right? The focus had been a smaller community advisory panel. Clearly, that has not been sufficient, right, to make sure that people understand who we are, outreach efforts, and how we do it. So we will get better. We have to get better to do that. We have been in the community, and we continue to go ahead and want to be a vibrant member. So we're doing more, and we'll continue to do more.
We've also, and I appreciate that, we also have had conversations about reducing the capacity of the storage tanks, whether they should even be called storage tanks or vessels, but do you at this point have the thought that you could do what you need to do, but also can reduce the size of those storage tanks?
Yes.
Capacity down to something that might be more reassuring to residents?
Absolutely. And so and you had brought up, why does the number keep changing, right? Because we keep working harder to keep shrinking it. In the special permitted use application, it was 26,000 gallons. After that time, as a group of individuals, trying to shrink it and getting down smaller, down to something around 12,000. Then in the past month, down to 11,000. In discussions yesterday with our engineering group, 10,500. Now we're looking at, can we shrink that even further and get it below 10,000 gallons? If for us to continuing to work that makes sense, which I do believe it does, to help bring in certainty that you can't ever put more in there regardless, then we will diligently keep doing that, because it makes sense for the parish council, it makes sense for the community, and then that would make sense for us.
So given those two things, and this is where I have to ask, I understand Cornerstone does not want us to rescind the permit granted last year, but given the fact that we have acknowledged poor communication, that we have acknowledged you all can reduce the ask to us, the size of the tanks, why would it not be best at this moment for us to make that rescission and work together for you to submit something else that is a reduced storage capacity, that addresses those fears for people, and then you communicate better as you come through the process again, to talk with the community, to talk with us and everyone involved, to fully explain all of these things that are complex in nature. Why would that not be the best, most prudent passage for us all moving forward?
Sure, I understood. Because I believe with my commitment and binding commitment, right, today, to reduce the size, if we move forward, right, to reduce the size of the vessels and to continue to do our outreach efforts, I think that we can do that with what we have today, as opposed to pushing the reset button and starting an entire process over. If those are the two issues, and that's what I believe are the two issues, we can work together like we've been doing right now, right? I can submit an amendment, right, to our special permitted use application and simply reduce the size once we can, spend another 30 days or so working down and see how much smaller we can do it. That would be a very clean and easy way to do that.
But right now, you say binding, but we don't actually have anything binding, and we don't have an amendment, and we don't have anything in writing. So if we don't take an action, we leave here, and truly I don't think the public has, nor us, frankly, in writing that you could take to the bank that something is going to be different. I believe you to be a trustworthy person. You have exhibited that in our conversations, and I think the community would say that. But right now, we don't have anything binding. The first thing they teach you in law school is get it in writing.
Sure.
We don't have it in writing at this moment, and so I think that's where, at this moment, if we don't take an action, we leave here today, you still have the capacity to do exactly what you have been approved for a year ago, which is 26,000, 2 storage tanks of 26,000. So right now there isn't anything binding. And so I think that is the problem at this point. We don't have anything in writing that's different, and we don't have a process in place for you to give us what's different in writing, and then have those conversations and have those discussions and come back for approval. So that's the element that we're missing right now.
So how about spending another couple of weeks where we, right, can sit down together and write down what is binding, and no different than Councilman Spears put together that resolution. Why don't we work together and demonstrate to everybody that we can work this out, and we can work this out now?
But that would leave us with nothing on paper today.
And so my commitment too is, as was also mentioned, right, I can also ensure, and we don't have the LDEQ permit, which means I can't begin construction. So what I could also do is ensure you, as a council, not to begin construction or do anything with it until we've got a fair chance to sit down and work it out.
That's not in writing. At this point, we don't have any of those assurances, and I think that's where we leave with some discomfort, that we don't have those things in writing. We do not have any of that in writing to say this is what we're willing to commit, and the public hasn't been given that. That's really where I think, do I think we can work it out moving forward? Do I think we can have good conversations? Do I think we can all benefit? Yes, but the problem is today, if we don't take an action, we leave here with no guarantees in any of those things that I think are important to have guaranteed at this point. And if you have a thought about how else to work it, but that I think is the crux of the matter at this moment. If we don't rescind at this moment, that would be the guarantee that we have to have continued conversations, that you have to try and maybe put something in writing that's a different path forward. If there's a different thought, let me know, but that is the problem at this moment. We would leave here if we take no action today with nothing in writing, nothing committed, other than verbally, and I don't know that the public is willing to accept that.
So with the LDEQ permit not issued, I can't begin construction anyway, right? So I can't begin construction on the plan. Obviously, from the time from the ordinance was first read until now, it was only 2 weeks. And so that's where I would ask, right? How long would it take for us to sit down, right, and come up with another option, right, that would again demonstrate that we can work together and move forward?
Can't we do the same though? Can't you leave here today, if we rescind what has been granted, and you have not constructed anything, you have not moved forward with that, can't you leave here and then say, I'm gonna get my team together, I'm gonna see what is the smallest vessels that I can have for startup and shut down, and then come back with a modified request to us that then we move through our process? Why isn't that an acceptable path forward?
My concern about doing that is again, part of the precedent that this states is that for us, right, as a business community or as a unit, is that there's no way to work this out, right, other than forcing a rescission, right? I would like to think that if there are concerns that pop up for anybody, because when I think about anybody with a special use permit, a new piece of information comes up, there's a change. Why can't we demonstrate to the community that we can collectively sit down and work it out rather than just jumping to, I would call it, a state of rescission? Because I think we can. I think we can go ahead and do this better. If we communicate better, if we have better outreach, if concerns come to us with the opportunity to work out those before it comes to an issue like this, why can't we take that first step together and try to demonstrate to the business community that you heard from today, the citizens that expect things to go ahead and change, and you all as a governing body, why can't we try that?
Well, I think, like I said, I think at this point, I think it would be a better path forward for us all. What Councilman Spears is proposing is not revoking everything that you came to us a year ago to do. It is with a scalpel carving out the portion that citizens are saying is concerning. It is the new plant, it is the storage tanks. The other things you have approval to continue to move forward on as a company. I think it's a decision for us all to make at this point, to commit to working together. if the rescission is made today of that small portion of what your company is pursuing, again, I think it would show good faith on Cornerstone's part to make those reductions, to make those assurances to the public, to come back through the process, to have robust discussion, and to move forward at that point when we have acknowledged those conversations have not taken place, those reductions haven't taken place. Again, I do appreciate you working with us on this and all the conversation to this point with the neighbors, particularly in those small groups that I attended. I did think it was very productive and productive for them as well to be able to sit across the table from you and have those discussions. And so I do think, again, those have been productive.
Great, thank you.
This is going to be the last speaker here. Sir, if you'd state your name and where.
Lee Bon Corral, 3913 River Road, Bridge City. I always like learning things. And one thing I learned from the Cornerstone salesman is that the word right, when you punctuate right at the end of a sentence, you're trying to sell rhetoric, or you're trying to keep the person you're talking to from disagreeing with you. Also, I lived in New Orleans for 57 years. I've never in my life heard the word near neighbor. So I am learning from Cornerstone. Both me and my brother worked in a plant. After one explosion, I left and decided to do a different career. He was an ironworker and he was on a rack of pipes. And the siren started going off and a big cloud was coming towards him. And I asked him, "What did you do?" He said, "I held my breath for as long as possible, but eventually I had to breathe." And that's what made me think of the families in Wagaman and the other neighbors, not the near neighbors, the other neighbors where this gas could go. I was thinking about all of the families, the parents, the grandparents, and maybe the great-grandparents are going to have to hold their breath while they actually are smothering their babies and toddlers to try to keep them from breathing the cyanide.
Okay. At this time, the public hearing is now closed.
Councilman, can I ask a question?
Sure. Councilwoman Van Branken.
One that I'm pondering and I don't know the answer is, do we even have the option of suspending the SPU until something is submitted that is an amendment in writing with a reduction of storage tanks? I don't know what our options are there.
I'm not sure that has ever come up, so I don't have a good bottom line answer.
That's fair. I know a lot of this is unfolding today, so.
Councilman Viscott.
Yeah, I mean, consistent with that, and to me, it would seem like a motion for miscellaneous relief, which I think can be done under our rules. And with that, in light of the comments that have been made, I'd like to make a motion to defer this item for 30 days with a suspension of any cyanide-related construction activities during that time until such time as they can, Cornerstone can come forward with an amended plan for the storage tanks to reduce the capacity to 11,000 gallons or less within that 30 days.
Is there a second? Okay, motion fails. Councilman Spears.
I move for approval of this ordinance rescinding the Cyanide plan.
Moved by Councilman Spears on item number 44, summary number 25178, second by Councilman Roberts. Madam Clerk, if you would please do a roll call vote.
May I speak, Councilman?
Sure. Councilman Ipeston.
Yeah, I want to thank all of my colleagues for the amount of effort that I've seen each of the 7 put forward on this has been certainly the largest undertaking in the 2 years that I've been on the council, and I feel confident confident that every person here has done as much due diligence as possible. And I want to thank all the residents who have reached out, both individually, personally, the public meetings, the emails, and the dialogue has certainly been great. Anytime we get public input, that is certainly huge. For me, the decision is 100% on safety and public safety. I agree with all the comments that have been made where that should trump everything. And I agree with that. It's not a matter of what's the message to the business community or anything like that. Right. It's public safety. And I can tell you, I've made a living, I've fed my family holding companies like Cornerstone accountable. That's where my livelihood is based. And I've had the misfortune of watching families who have had bad things happen to them because certain companies have failed to make sure that they're using the state-of-the-art technology, that they're putting safety first at all times, and unfortunately waiting until something bad happens to make changes that need to be made. But interestingly enough, what I see here, and I'm only basing this on the science, on the chemists, the chemical engineers, the safety personnel, all of the experts who we have consulted, and everyone seems to agree that these upgrades will make this facility safer to the community than it is today. And one of my concerns is that if we obstruct upgrades that make this the safest, most state-of-the-art facility possible, I'm afraid we cause a risk to the community, and that's my concern. It's not based on hypotheticals or hyperboles, but simply what the science seems to suggest is the safest thing for the community, which is to upgrade this facility. And so for that reason, I will not be voting to rescind the permit. So with that, thank you.
Let me just say, and if I may, I appreciate what you're saying on safety. Nothing in our action today, if we choose to rescind this permit, prevents Cornerstone from coming back with an ask that is reduced, that is a new and modern plant, the highest of efficiency with reduced storage capacity. So certainly I hope if that is their commitment to our community and safety and upgrading is their commitment, that they will come back with a revised ask to make that happen, but also acknowledging the lack of communication they've had and the ability to reduce the storage tanks, and acknowledging both of those, that they come forth as good members of our community to make those upgrades, to make it safer, but to refine their communication and to refine their ask of us.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Spears. We have a second by Councilman Roberts. Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Spears.
Approval. Move approval.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
Councilwoman Lee Shane. Councilman Ipostata.
No.
Councilwoman Van Franken.
Yes.
Councilman Templet. Councilman Johnston. And the motion passes.